Well, hello and welcome to Beaverdale Books. Thanks so much for joining us for tonight's book talk. And before we begin, I want to mention a couple of upcoming events. Tomorrow at 5 p.m., Susan Shackelford and Pamela Grundy are going to share their book, Shattering the Glass, The Remarkable History of Women's Basketball. And that's going to be at the State Historical Building. We also have a special ticketed event with Nick Offerman coming up on October 14th. And the third annual Banned Books Festival. That's October 11th. Both of those are going to be at Franklin Event Center, and we hope you will take advantage of those wonderful special events. You can find all the details on our website. Now, on to tonight's program. After spending several years working on a documentary photographic project about American ranch life that became a book, Straight West, Portraits and Scenes from Ranch Life in the American West, Lindy Smith started to become very interested in the many weeds growing on the farm where she lived in rural New York. Everywhere she walked, plants unknown to her were flourishing. Lindy Smith found her next project, which became Leaves and Light, Sunprints of American Native Plants. Lindy received a degree in French and photography from Bennington College and received a certificate of completion at La Université de Caen in Normandy. She founded Visual Concepts, a display and interior design firm in Massachusetts, and she returned to photography in 1992 after observing a Buck Brannaman horsemanship clinic in Wyoming, which led to 7 years of documenting ranch life from Montana to Arizona. In 2000, she began making images under sunlight, and this work is in many public and private collections. Please join me in a warm welcome for Lindy Smith.
Well, thank you for coming, whoever's here. I wanted to talk about my new book, Leaves and Light. It's been 25 years since my last book, and I'm kind of shocked that I had this opportunity to do another one. My first book was challenging. I traveled around the West for, as Jan said, about 7 years. It didn't occur to me that it would become a book at the time. I just assumed that I'd have some exhibits, and that would be that. But I was approached by a publisher in 2000, and it did become a book. The publishing experience was not a happy one for me because I was really sort of dismayed, to say the least, about the quality of the book production when it came out. And I worried that I had let down the people I'd been photographing who'd let me into their lives throughout these 7 years. So I kind of went back home to New York State and just put away my camera and decided that I just really had to heal for a while from that experience. And I started spending a lot of time out on the farm, which my ex-husband and I had recently purchased. It was a really run-down little farm, and it had been abandoned for a long time, and the fields were overgrown, but that turned out to be a really positive thing because it was full of these amazing plants that I suddenly, it's like my eyes were opened and I saw these plants in front of me, and I was sort of mesmerized. I wanted to know what they were, and I realized this was my next project right at my feet, because I wanted to make images of them in a 19th century process. I'd been working in what's known as alternative photo processes for a number of years already, and I started thinking about how I could sort of translate doing that into making images of the plants, and I realized I wanted to do it under sunlight. Anna Atkins was really the first person to do that. She was a 19th century British sort of amateur scientist, pioneer, but I had never heard of her at this point, at least not that I knew of. So I felt like I was just sort of not inventing this process, but just really kind of taking off on my own. And so I started collecting plants from the farm with my dogs and experimenting quite small, maybe 6 by 8 images of small plants, mixing chemistry, experimenting with different papers, French, Italian, Japanese, English papers, cotton, linen, some handmade American papers, using different chemistries from platinum salts to palladium salts to what I really kind of landed on permanently, which is the calitite process, which is a silver nitrate and ferric oxalate iron salts process. It's considered to be one of what they call the Iron Man processes, which was patented in the 1880s. And I just started playing around for a couple of years. Is this working okay? Because I sound like I'm
It's okay.
a bull snorting in pasture to myself. So a couple of years went by. I started applying to arts residencies. And I was accepted to some, and I went off and started working in other ecosystems, the Midwest, Iowa, Illinois, the Great Plains, and then grasslands, Wyoming, and then California, which was a big one. My ex-husband and I were in California for 2 winters while he was teaching out there, and then I started going back on my own. And California was just a whole different world, botanically, and I was just in awe all the time. It was like Christmas, really. And I always had permits at that point because I'd had a bad experience at one of my art residencies in Illinois when I call them the plant police. I was grabbed by the plant police collecting plants that I thought I had already asked permission to collect. And it turns out I hadn't. I hadn't asked the right people. And I got into a lot of trouble. So after that, I mean, it all worked out in the end. They sort of forgave me and told me I could collect under certain conditions. But after that, I always was sure to get proper permits and have them on me at all times. But even then, I knew that there were plants that I really shouldn't collect, that they were rare enough that they were having trouble keeping up their own populations. Some of them were poisonous. So I had started paying more attention at that point to what the plants were besides just how they looked. And the images became a lot larger. The tallest image I did was 90 inches. So there was another panel on top of this one that you see. And I had to develop different methods for printing to do images that large. And as Danny knows, then I did a project here in Iowa later on where I had a residency at Brenton Arboretum and spent 6 weeks making 3 kimono from Japanese paper that I converted into fabric with a Japanese powder called devil's root. And I made cyanotypes out of them, and then in pieces, and then assembled them for an exhibit here in Des Moines. And Danny now owns one of those. So that's kind of where this all went. There was a fallow period when I moved back to Iowa. I'd been living on the East Coast for about 30 years. I moved back to Iowa about 15 years ago. And I was taking care of my father, and who needed more care as time went by, and that just really put everything else on hold. I mean, I literally just left my studio one day, and there was unfinished work on the counters, and that stayed there for years. So it's only been in the last couple of years since he passed that I'm kind of getting back to myself And I announced to a friend of mine one day that I really wanted to do another book, and that I thought there was plenty of work to make a book about native plants. And she immediately said, "That's a great idea. Here's my publisher's name." And I contacted him. He loved the work, and we started working together. That was about 1.5 years ago, and here we are. So this time around, I'm very happy with the quality of the production. I'm proud of the work, and I'd love to do another one. I think the next one I would like to do is on introduced plants in this country, because there are so many plants that we think are native and aren't. Queen Anne's lace is a perfect example of that, and they're really beautiful plants. But they're also invasive. They have a tendency to take over and push out the natives. So that's kind of my story. And if you have anything you'd like me to drone on about, I'm happy to do that. I can tell you about these.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a cyanotype, diptych. The plant is one of my favorites. It's called Culver's root. And the first place I saw it was at Neil Smith Wildlife Refuge out at Prairie City. And I just really loved it. It's very statuesque and makes a real statement. So I collected these out there. I was issued a lab out at Neil Smith for 2 summers in a row under the previous director, and she gave me full reign to just collect any plants I wanted to. There were no restrictions. And so I worked out there. I would collect in the afternoons, and then when the place closed, there were no longer visitors out there. I would expose the plants and then develop them. So this was done out there. This one I also did in Iowa, and this is a great blue lobelia, if that's a plant you're familiar with. And I also saw that out near Neil Smith. I actually fell in a ditch. And I couldn't quite get out. It was really a deep ditch. I started looking around me, and these plants were literally 6 feet tall. And when you look at field guides, they say these plants are 3 to 4 feet tall. But when I stood up, they were all taller than me and in large clusters. It was just this little blue haven. The blossoms are quite blue. So I collected some of those, and I've made several images of them. It's another one of my favorite plants. This process is called calotype. It's, as I said, it was patented in the 1880s, and it's a lot more affordable than platinum or palladium, which the platinum in particular, the supply of it is controlled mostly by the Russians, and the prices of it go up and down wildly, but mostly up. And when I was using it in the 1990s, when I was starting to work in platinum with my Western work, a 25 milliliter pre-mixed formula of it was several $100s. So if I had a failed print, it was really a catastrophe for me, and there was no way of reusing it. I couldn't melt it down or burn it or something and reuse it. Palladium was a little more affordable, a little easier to work with, but then I landed on calotypes, which were considerably less expensive, being an iron-based process, and it had a lot more color range, which I really liked too. So I started going with that almost exclusively. It can be very temperamental, but all these processes can. And I never knew when I brought a plant in. My setup, I don't think I really explained that, was the plant would be placed on the paper that I had pre-coated, and it would be placed between two large sheets of glass, and I would get it outside and place it on trestles, and it would be exposed under sunlight, sometimes for as little as maybe 45 minutes if it was maybe August on a 100-degree day at noon. And then the longest exposure I ever did was about 2 weeks, and that was in November. Lousy weather, no sun, and it was very experimental, but it did work in the end. So why was I telling you that? I don't know where I was.
You said you're.
Oh yeah, how I'd get it out. So then I'd bring it back inside, and when I'd take the glass off and pick the plant off it, I never knew what I was going to get. There was never any predictability. So it was always magic, and it was always a thrill. And sometimes I was crushed if I wasn't happy with the way a print had come out. But it was great because it was never boring, ever. Let's see, what else can I tell you?
Talk a little bit about how you made it into fabric.
Oh, okay.
Because I was seeing these thinking.
Well, these are paper. The kimono I did, Japanese rice paper comes in narrow widths. I think they're maybe 20 inches wide.
Yeah.
And it's kind of flexible, but it tears really easily. So I did research, and I found that traditionally, when like making umbrellas, they would sort of turn the paper into fabric by using this powder called devil's root. And I found a place, I think it was in Minneapolis, it's a place that's not there any longer, that supplied this powder. So I started playing around with it, and it did indeed make the paper much more flexible so that it didn't tear readily. And the first thing I did was make these 6-foot-long sections of the paper, coated it in the devil's root, which turned it a really interesting shade of green, let it dry, flattened it, and then started the exposure process, recoating it with either the cyanotype or the calotype fluids. So then that would dry, and then that was all ironed out, and then I would collect the plants, and then at that size I had to do it on wooden boards and plexiglass sheets because I couldn't lift sheets of glass that tall. They were just too heavy. And then I took them out of the warehouse where I was working at the Arboretum and just left them out there in pieces, the sleeves, the collars, the panels, front and back. And I ended up, I had initially planned to make 2, but they gave me more time to work there. And they said, you can stay another 2 weeks if you want. And that gave me enough time to do a 3rd kimono. So one was our native redwood bud tree.
Is that the one that I have?
Yes, that's the one that Danny has.
This is the one I have. You can see. So it's big.
It's huge.
It's big, but
It's 6 feet by
wow.
maybe 4 feet. Yeah.
So it's
So that was
so that's
one.
hanging on the wall, but so it's big.
The second one was a saw-leafed sunflower, which is quite a large, impressive plant with really distinctive leaves that I collected out there also. And then the third was just a bunch of native grasses that I collected. The third one I did inside out, and that was interesting because it was the shadow of this, basically. So instead of seeing deep blues and blue grays, it was just very, very subtle. And I almost liked that better. But those sat in my studio folded up on a shelf for 10 years until my cousin, who's here tonight, mentioned this to Danny, who said she wanted to have a look at them. And she did, and she picked one, and so now one of them has a permanent home.
And did you do all the sewing?
They weren't sewed,
Oh, they're not
they were glued.
Okay.
Yeah. I mixed a special kind of water-based glue, and just because I was thinking if I wasn't quite happy with that, there was the possibility of redoing it, but in the end, that wasn't true at all. So, but I spent a lot of time in this warehouse with my ironing board and iron, piecing these things together, and yeah.
And is the color fast?
Stable?
Yeah, is
Yeah.
it?
Cyanotype is very stable. I've never tried this, I've read that if it ever fades, you can put it in a closet for a few days and it will regain its color. And I've read that in several places, so I assume it's actually true.
Wow.
Yeah.
So where do you even begin to find these products?
Oh, well, a lot of research. In the 1990s, I was spending a lot of time in Santa Fe, and there was a fabulous gallery there that specialized in these alternative processes, and that was the first time in about 20 years that I'd seen anything printed in that process. And there's a whole community of photographers there working in these processes, and there's a company there called Bostick and Sullivan for the husband and wife team, and they supply the chemicals. So I found out about them and started ordering from them and experimenting and seeing what worked for me and what didn't. So.
Lindy, may I show? I was looking. I finally found it again. In 2014, the Art Center collaborated with the East Village, with the shops and restaurants, whatever, down there. And it was called Art Meets Fashion. And it was in collaboration with Andy Warhol's collection and stuff too, I think. And anyway, so different shops represented different. And this is, I run the store Velvet Coat in the East Village. And I asked Lindy if she would be our artist. And I don't know how she did it, how she got them up there, but she did.
The same kimono.
They were hanging. Aren't they fabulous?
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's just.
Jay, who's standing in the background,
I remember
helped
that.
install
Do
it,
you remember?
along with
You remember that?
along with my
Maybe I
partner.
remember. I think I helped put them up and
Yeah.
You helped put it up in my
Yeah.
house.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
I did.
It was amazing. I mean,
I'm sorry?
they were hanging from the ceiling,
No.
and they were.
Just that.
I
It was
did just that project.
They
yeah.
were gorgeous.
It took up so much space to
It
do
was-
that
it
project,
was so cool.
and it was just absolutely
Could we
exhausting
put that so
to
good?
do it.
Let's see if we can.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with the way they came out.
So Lindy, do you have
Telephone, taking a
favorite
telephone.
place in Iowa where you like find your plants? Or
Neil Smith.
Neil Smith?
Yeah, and a close
Let
second.
me remind
A
you
close
of that
second would be the
horrible
Arboretum,
day.
the Brenton Arboretum. Yeah. Mhm.
How do you get a permit?
You apply to the federal government, the U.S. Forest Service. In California, that was the case anyway. In Illinois and here, it went through the National Refuge System. In Illinois, I was invited, believe it or not, to work at the Fermi Lab. I knew the director and his wife, and they invited me. They were going to be in Vietnam with their daughter for a while, and they said, take the house and just do what you want. And that was shortly after 9/11. So they had made it sound pretty casual, you know, just go ahead and do your work. But the military posted at the gates hadn't quite gotten the message that I was allowed to be there. And it was sort of a daily trial. to be questioned about what I was doing there, and I don't think they were very happy to have me there, but in any event, I got a lot of good work done there. Really good work, I think. They had one of their previous directors, Robert Wilson, in 1970, had been approached by a botanist there who said, "You have this 30 acres of land that you're not using. Can I start a native garden on it, native prairie on it?" And he said, "Well, when would you like to start?" And he said, "Now." And he said, "Okay, do it." And that's now, I can't remember how many hundreds of acres that now is. And they have a volunteer association of people who maintain it and publicize about it. I think they have a newsletter. And the plants that were there when I was there were really high quality plants. I mean, there was very little invasive plants. It was clear that they were out there really maintaining it.
So do you ever work with like landowners that have CRP? Conservation Reserve programs?
No,
or?
I haven't. Chris Henning is I grew up in Jefferson, and she's very involved in that program. And I believe at one point she said to me, I think this was about 10 years ago, come and work here. And I just didn't get around to it. But it's nice to see more people, it's beyond nice to see more people getting involved in this, protecting what's here, adding to it, keeping secret where the remnant prairies are so they're not destroyed. And gardeners in town, more and more I'm seeing native plants around town. My garden, I've recently started hearing this term called chaos gardening with native plants, and I think I qualify at this point. I think this is my 12th year, and it's now edge to edge on my city property, and right now it's probably 12 feet tall.
Wow.
And I worry about it. And that's after, I don't know if you're familiar with this term called Chelsea chopping. It's started from British gardens. In the spring, May, early June, you chop a plant down about halfway so that it gets bushier, gives you more blooms, doesn't flop, doesn't get as tall. So I did that this spring, and it didn't really work. I only cut them by about a third with help. I think next year I'll have to be really much more ruthless with it, because now things are filled in so much. There's no gap between plants at all, and they're just shooting upward. And it's also another thing that's interesting about these native growth patterns is they really do crowd out other plants. So plants that I've had in profusion in years past might disappear completely when something else takes over. So that, I think, for a lot of us is something that's hard to get used to stay on top of. And I've never grown from seed. I've always purchased seedlings from various native nurseries. And it's expensive. It gets really expensive. So when I lose a group of plants, I'm not happy about it.
So you live in Iowa now?
I do. I moved back in 2010. I'd lived on the East Coast for over 30 years. And I really didn't think I'd ever come back here, but I did. And I'm still here.
Do you ever do any workshops or?
I have.
Really?
I have in the past, and I've spoken at a number of colleges. I love talking to college kids because they've never seen anything like it. This is a digital world for them, and doing something handmade from beginning to end is like this, which is still a photographic process, is something they've never seen before, but they love. I asked one group of kids to bring in something that they wanted to make images of when I was teaching the basics of this process to them, and one kid brought in slices of bologna. And it was kind of cool, actually, how it came out, except it was very greasy, you know? Yeah.
Well, where I was going with the fabric, I've seen photographs that have been turned into fabric.
Right.
And this seems like the perfect
Yeah.
thing. I mean, a scarf.
Yeah. I've
Like
been
that
told
would
that.
be
I've been told that.
beautiful.
Yeah. I think it would, it would be lovely.
And I have a friend who she uses silk and puts it in buckets of like old farm implements.
Sure, for resting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And some of those scarves are absolutely beautiful, and like you'll see the outline of a bolt or a piece of equipment,
Yeah.
and it's just beautiful.
It is. It's amazing what you can do with what you already have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, there are any number of directions that I could have taken this, but I was so in love with the process as it's on paper that I never quite made it beyond that.
It must be kind of like Christmas when you.
It is. It absolutely is. And I mostly worked alone, and sometimes I just wanted to grab somebody and say, "You got to see this."
Yeah.
Wow. What was the process for that one?
This one, this is a cyanotype.
That's what I thought. So what I thought a cyanotype, I don't know anything about this, but I've done the little cyanotypes
Yeah.
with my grandkids.
The
and stuff a lot.
kids,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so I wouldn't have expected to see color on them because they're just basically the I don't know,
By color, do you mean the detail?
the blues.
Yeah, yeah.
How does that work with?
It's just a chemical reaction, you know, but it also has to do with the chemistry within the plant itself, how it interacts.
So when you cover the paper.
I
and
coat the
you
paper.
coat the paper, and then you put a plant down, and so that color may or may not be what that color really looks like in the
Right.
wild. It
Oh,
depends on-
right. It would never look like this in the wild, but you see a lot of detail from
I
the
see.
the
Okay,
leaves,
that makes sense then.
the
Okay.
humidity in the leaves,
Okay.
and the chemicals that the plant
So
exudes.
that's what causes the color.
Right.
Okay.
In 2018, I was invited to participate in a retrospective for Anna Atkins, who I think I already mentioned, at the New York Public Library. And a number of people working in alternative processes were invited to participate in a joint show that they called Anna Refracted, I think it was what it was called. There were a lot of cyanotypes. And it was really inspiring to see how far people were really taking it. And some people, I really couldn't understand how they had done it. One woman did a fabulous piece, which was probably close to 8 feet tall, that appeared to be waves, just really ocean waves. And it's a contact process, which means that you have to have something that's the size it's going to be when you finish on top. So either she had an 8-foot negative that she was working from, or she had figured out some other way to produce this effect, you know? It was really neat. And it was also neat to see Anna Atkins' work in the originals. She was really one of the first to go out and do this under sunlight, and her specialty was seaweed. And she would just it was a very traditional botanical image. She would just place a piece of seaweed on this sheet of paper and expose it under light. And often they seemed sort of underexposed to me. I think one of the reasons I get the effects that I do is because I overexpose. I leave them out forever. And I think I also overdevelop according to traditional guidelines. But for me it really works because it gives me a lot of detail. So that was really, really interesting and quite an honor to be included in that show. And the curator bought 4 pieces of my work for their permanent collection. So that's another thing. I mean, there are museums that own my work, but they always tell me these are never going to be seen by anyone. This is for research purposes. So
They should be seen. They're beautiful.
thank you.
So, in real life, what color was that plant?
Green.
Just all green.
The blossoms are white.
Oh, white. Okay.
Very rarely you'll find a pink one. I actually had pink ones growing in my garden here at one point. And do you know Kelly Norris?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kelly was doing one of his books and he wanted a pink Culver's root, so he came over and photographed it for his book. But almost always you'll see them as white. And the bees absolutely go crazy for it. Absolutely.
What's the plant called?
Culver's root. I don't know who Culver was. But the blossom tops that you'll see, there would be 30 or 40 bees on it.
Wow.
About 6 weeks ago.
Wow.
That is not good. I raised bees and I just got stung tonight, so I'm sitting
Oh,
here.
So you're a beekeeper?
I am, and I tried to mow too close. I was ignoring them, and I was just mowing, and they didn't like that.
So have you had success with winters out here?
No.
I've
Yes
heard
and
it's
no.
been problematic.
It's hard. I don't like to treat them, and so I could get into all of that. I could totally nerd out on bee stuff, but it's not easy. It's not
No.
easy.
My ex and I used to have bees
Really.
on the farm in New York, and I think there was only one winter that they made it through. But those winters out there are like here. I mean, they're brutal.
Yeah, I don't know. We're on a prairie area, so it should be a good place for them,
But there's so much overspray here from
there is.
the herbicides and the pesticides.
Maybe that's what it is. We keep hoping.
And there's not much you can do about it either.
Yeah,
So the mite problem hasn't been eradicated.
no.
And that's really too bad.
So if we treat them, it seems to. It's not the weather, I don't think anymore. Kind of where they're kind of in a little low area, and I think they're okay that they make it till like April, and then the mite issue I think is what takes them.
Do you sell your honey, or it's just for personal use?
I only have 3. We have 3 hives.
Mhm.
We just do it for fun.
Do you have an extractor?
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved that.
I know.
Bees.
It is pretty fun. It's always really fun until it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just itching, so sorry I'm not.
Did you get multiple stings?
Well, I don't know. I know I had one really good one. I think I might have had a couple in here, but I mean it happens. It's not a big deal, but I try not to just sit here and go like this. Anyway, but it's in a prairie area, and I love the plants out there, and I do photography work, and so this is just really inspiring to see what you've done. It's
Where
really
is
cool.
your farm?
It's in Cumming.
Oh, sure.
Cumming, Iowa, yeah.
So are you near Blooming Prairie?
I don't know what
It's
what Cumming Prairie is.
they retail native plants. It's a great place.
Oh, that's down in Cumming. Isn't
Oh,
it?
Cumming.
Cumming.
Yeah.
I have been there. Yeah, I have been down there. If it's the one I'm thinking of, I have
Mhm.
it. Yeah.
I think it's the only one there.
Yeah, then I have. Because that's why I went, because they sell native plants.
Yeah.
That's why I went, yeah.
I make a pilgrimage out there pretty much every year
Yeah.
and come back with way more than I should.
Always.
Yeah.
And we actually sell honey here.
Oh, you do?
We do. One of our staff members is married to the state apiarist.
Really?
Yes, and so it's called Blazing Meadows.
Oh, I buy from them at the co-op.
Yeah, we
great
stock.
honey.
It is really good honey.
And they also do candles.
Yes, yes.
Nice Christmas gifts.
Beautiful Christmas gifts, yeah. Trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the old-fashioned hives.
Yep.
and-
Okay.
Well, I feel a little silly here talking into this microphone.
Well, we can finish and maybe sign a book or two, and and thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
Let's hear it.